Premier League poker continues here at the Montesino in Vienna as the best in the business battle it out for a piece of the $2.2 million prize pool and a championship title. This season, there are more players, there's more action, and there's more money to be won. Our lineup's been divided into 2 groups of 8, and each will play 4 matches in a bid to accumulate points in this league format and progress through to the final table. But only the top 3 in each heat is actually guaranteed a seat at the final, so the pressure is on. Both groups A and B have played 2 matches each, so let's see what's happened so far.
Group A arrived at the casino in high spirits, ready for Season 5 to get underway.
Tony, I have no idea what you're looking.
Are you outplaying me, or did you wake up with a hand? Okay, so it's a little outplay time. All right, good.
There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Why can't you sit near me? You know, why you have to be way over here, kid? I overreacted, I'm sorry. You are the best, Tony G. You're in my head and I'm not even it.
I'm just the worst.
That was a sick ride. Wow, I never expected to win it. That was sick.
I got the bagel last time, so I have to get some chips.
I'm basically out of the Premier League, down to my last animals.
I got to deal with the stare down just to steal a freaking blind.
This is a standard fold. Phil has lost his mind.
We understand that you're not very good, but you're a nice guy.
Yeah! Tight with a night.
These are Group A's league standings after 2 heats. Joined first is Phil Laak and Tony G with 20 points. And Sam Trickett moves up to join them in the top 3. Andy Frankenberger is now down in the playoff zone and is joined 4th with Erik Seidel, who moves up after his 2nd place finish. Dropping down into the relegation zone is Eugene Katchalov and Matthew Frankland. Luke Schwartz remains at the bottom of the pile with a mountain now to climb. Group B's matches were full of drama. It has already been a roller coaster ride for some of our Premier League players.
It's the first time I've ever come on be excited about the chance of folding.
That's not a good start.
1,000 at a time.
Yep.
Grinding it up.
I heard I'm not supposed to make friends at the table.
You gotta stand up for yourself, you know, in this world.
That's the way to do it.
You're gonna see me playing this sit and go forever.
I'm so bad at folding.
It's nothing quite like having the second nuts.
I slept chips? Chip. 8 chip? It hurt you too much to fold the small blind to me 3 times in a row.
Good news.
Kid does it again. This hands, guys.
I lay the trap.
I think I'm trapping you.
I got reverse trap.
James.
These are Group B standings after 2 matches. Wins for Patrick Antonius and Yevgeny Timoshenko see them in the top 3. Timoshenko is tied with Jungleman Cates, who came 3rd in Heat 1 and 2nd in Heat 2. There is a big divide between the final table and the playoff zone. Scott Seaver is on 11. He took the bagel in Heat 2. Vanessa Selps is on 10. In the elimination zone is Tom Dwan, Elke, and Benjamin Wilanowski. They have a lot of work to do in their 3rd league match. We are now getting into the teeth of Premier League Poker 5 with Group A's 3rd league match coming up. And I'm joined by a player in Group B, Daniel Cates. Now, Daniel, your spot on the Group B's leaderboard is pretty comfortable. But for the guys in Group A, how are their tactics going to change now for this 3rd match, like according to their position?
Well, the guys with the most points, they can kind of do whatever. They have liberty to like try to pick a high variance route and maybe like try to get as many points as possible. But the guys who aren't quite in the money, the guys who are on the bubble, and the guys who are like really hurting, those are the guys that really need to like start thinking more and more about their strategy as time goes on, and thinking about which players they want to shove on based on their points.
So when we look at Group A right now, Sam Trickett on 14, and then Andy Frankenberger and Erik Seidel on 13 points, they have a lot of pressure on them in a sense.
Yeah, they have a lot of pressure on them. Like if they make or if they're not aggressive enough on the right spots, they can get bubbled pretty easily.
Well, it's only going to go up, those stakes, as the game goes on.
Ace King, you're good. You've got the best hand, whatever happens.
Anyway, it's good to have you back. That's a big, nice putt for you. Nice lift.
So sick. I don't want to show. It's too pretty to show.
You didn't have the heart. I told you, you're missing the heart.
This is where I test my luck.
Tony G, current league leader as far as Group A goes.
Everyone's waiting for me.
Coming to the table with what looks like a stuffed animal.
Matthew Savage, you or the bunny?
Jesse, why does he have a stuffed animal?
Daniel, I mean, last time he had the whole menagerie of like bears and looks like he's given Eugene Katchalov a rabbit.
That's a cute bunny.
This is your first chance, Daniel, to see all these guys at Group A, isn't it? This has been a different sort of atmosphere from Group B. A lot less serious, I'll tell you what.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see.
It doesn't really matter.
You know a couple of these guys very well, but which of the players in Group A are you kind of most excited to watch as far as, you know, you've never seen their style of play, cards under the table, that sort of thing?
Well, there's a few players I'm looking forward to see. There's a Sam Trickett who's pretty good. I haven't seen a whole lot of him play. I like to see like some of the moves that he'll make, because I'm expecting some big things from him. There's Luke, just so I can bash him later if he does something stupid. And Tony G, just because I'm curious, like, what this like stuffed animal is all about, like to see what the man himself is all about.
You know, the third match always sort of, I mean, you could say it has sort of the weirdest dynamics because, you know, a guy like Luke Schwartz, who's bottom of the league table right now with only 3 points, if he doesn't come top 3 here, you know, he feels like he's pretty much dead. And I mean, I don't know if you've been talking to him. I mean, is that what he's saying? Is he going to try and play really fast type of thing?
I don't know if he's going to try to play fast. I mean, he's probably, I can't imagine that he's going to play much different. But I'm sure he's like super aware of the fact that if he doesn't make something happen here, he's done for as far as the period goes.
Frankenberger raised this pre-flop, called in 3 spots. The flop was checked, and then now Katchalov has fired out top pair from the big blind. And is Frankenberger's call pretty standard here with a flush draw? He's got a straight draw now.
Yeah, it's really standard. You know, I mean, on the other hand, he could raise because he's got a pretty big draw, and I mean, Katchalov can have a number of things. I mean, from his perspective, Katchalov actually probably has a hand a lot of the time, maybe a better hand than what he has. Decent amount. Not necessarily like a set, but something he could possibly move him off of. So I don't mind a raise either, but call's fine.
Katchalov takes it down on the river. What do you know about Eugene? Have you run across him in any of the high stakes tournaments or anything like that?
I played against Eugene briefly online. Actually, I saw one hand where he played against You're Not in Danger when he first moved up to 40-80, $16,000 buy-in deep. My friend You're Not in Danger 4-bets, and Eugene calls, and the flop's 10-6-8 all hearts. Scott has aces with the ace of hearts. It goes check, check. Eugene's in position, turns a heart. Scott bets, Eugene calls. River's a blank or whatever, and Scott shoves. Eugene calls. And
King of Hearts?
No, Eugene had the straight flush.
Tough. So that was your first experience. It sounds like he runs pretty good then.
Yeah, no kidding. Scott was devastated.
Phil's raised this up. I mean, just in general, and you know, Phil Laak's had.
You probably have something, right? Because normally you just raise me when you have air.
Yeah.
Phil's had a lot of success so far. Just
I check.
Playing very unorthodox, Daniel. But like with 20 points, he can be kind of loose early on, can he? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has some leeway.
I'm going to be less nervous if you, like, you know, re-raise me. It's when you just flat that I know he's protecting something.
You're too good.
there's actually going to be a lot more spots to pick up chips in Heat 4. I think there's this general idea there's going to be so many people who nearly have to ladder up in Heat 4, playing tight almost, that maybe Heat 4 is traditionally it's been the best spot to really, almost go for the win.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I imagine it plays similar to like a bubble situation and like a big tournament where there's like a big bubble or something.
And the big points leaders have the big stack in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's very similar.
Just in general, I mean, getting into it, there were a lot of people who, when they heard you were coming to the Premier League, they said, well, Daniel hasn't played many tournaments. The structure's going to just, fool with his mind. And through the first 2 heats, you've been like the most consistent guy. Had 2 great. Do you kind of feel like, it's been not so tough for you to adjust?
Well, I mean, I know how to play poker, so that helps a lot.
Fair enough.
Still, if you can bust first, you really open up the field nicely.
I'm gonna do it for you, kid.
I'm sure the other tournament players know a bit more about how to adjust to the structure, more so than I do. I mean, I still feel like I'm competitive in the field, and I mean, it has only been 2 heats.
Yeah, but you felt you have, but I mean, there were a couple of big pots, and you've made some excellent decisions, especially in the first couple levels. Like it's been quite clear, especially in regards to like Scott and Vanessa. You've been in a lot of big pots with them. It's like it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, things have gone well for me in general.
Matt Franklin, who had a great start in the first heat, but the bagel in the second heat. The bagel just wipes people out, really, like getting 0 points in the heat.
Bagel? What do you mean? When
you finish 8th and get 0, they call. Well, I guess Roland the Wolf coined the term years ago, the bagel, and it seems to. I mean, it's really tough to get back in it with a 0 on your scoreboard.
Yeah.
The 2 bagels in, the 2 guys who got the bagel in this group, Luke and Matt, they currently lie 7th and 8th. So, they've both got some work to do.
Yeah, no kidding. I need a.
So Luke's had raised this up originally. It was 3 ways. Frankenberger's played the check call, and now he's hit the full house. Is there a reason for Luke to barrel again here? Is there a range of hands he can get Frankenberger off of?
Maybe they're like an ace high or pocket pair, but I don't think Luke ever really goes for it. I think he's almost certainly going to check. He probably doesn't expect Frankenberger to fold ace high or pairs. Wow, is he really betting? I am surprised.
Doesn't even if Frankenberger had an ace high flush draw or something like that.
Oh yeah, like a flush draw. Maybe not ace high one, but like a flush draw in general. I mean, most people when they have ace high here and they call a flop, they're often not looking full turn. Especially, well, I don't know if the flush draws really matter, but it's a spot where you see some pretty light peels.
Did you see that? Luke Schwartz folded his cards before Frankenberger even put the chips in the pot.
Whatever happens in the hand.
I was actually going to call.
Yeah. Cole had me dead as well.
It seems like he's giving a little bit of a negative free roll, doesn't it?
Yeah, no kidding. Luke does a number of things like that that I like really don't think are good. Like it's just like, I mean, there's some weird situations which you randomly win. Like, what if the river's like a 9?
Yeah.
And he called with like pocket 6s or something on the turn, which happens. I mean, Luke shouldn't be doing things like that, in my opinion. And another issue with barreling turn is that Frankenberger can have a queen as he did. It's not super difficult. I'm not a huge fan of Luke's play.
These heats have been lasting about 175 hands, so it's I mean, I think originally when you sit down you think, well, there's not much play to them, but there is quite a bit of play in these heats.
Yeah.
I've been happy enough with the structure and stuff. And Schwartz, we'll be seeing stats and stuff like that. As far as his V-chip goes, or we call it V-chip here, but I guess you probably know more as V-pip. Yeah. I mean, he's basically played every hand.
That could have something to do with the results so far. surprising. We'll see if he keeps playing in that many hands. So far, he's definitely quite loose. 7-5 suited, 9-8 offsuit.
And he's in the big blind here. He's in a great spot. Looking, and him and Trickett have had some run-ins, but does he have a lot more equity by raising here than calling, or is it just because we can see that Trickett's a little bit vulnerable?
I would say raising is a pretty powerful play in general. Like Trickett's hand is generally not going to be something like this that has a whole lot of equity versus a hand that raises. Trickett's often going to have like ace-jack or like aces. Don't remember the pre-flop action.
Well, Trickett opened because he's under the gun and Luke called. So I mean.
Okay. Yeah, Trickett's hand is like very, very often like a
one pair hand.
Yeah, one pair. Like, and if Luke raises here, Trickett has like a real decision with one pair hand. As it happens, Trickett actually has a better hand versus a raising hand than a one pair hand. Because now he has outs versus set, or he has a few more outs versus set than normal, and he blocks one of the sets. Surrounding because that is that he has a worse hand than one pair. Well, he does have a one pair hand, but he doesn't have like aces or ace-jack, etc.
Because it's so unlikely for Luke to be check raising with one pair. It's either a draw. It's either worse or way better in your sense.
Yeah. It's either like it's most likely either like a draw or like aces. He's not gonna check raise with like a jack. He's gonna have a monster or like some sort of hand turned into a bluff, and it's probably not gonna be a 6.
And just because Luke's played every pot, we saw the hand against Frankenberger where he kind of, snap-mucked before Frankenberger put chips in. I mean, are you inclined to pay this off if you're Trickett? Luke's let out here for basically half pot.
If I was Trickett, I would probably never call. I would either raise or fold.
Wow.
Because, with so many hands, I just can't see what Luke could have as a bluff here. Even more so with Trickett's exact hand. He blocks some of the 6s that Luke could have, so it's even less likely that Luke's turning something into a bluff. I don't even like Luke's lead, actually, because it's so obvious that Luke just has to have something here. By leading, he really makes it obvious that he has a real hand, whereas if he checks, there you go, if Trickett folded. If he checks, Trickett can bluff, or he can do something weird, or decide to value cut himself with aces. Whereas if he bets now, Trickett may even fold aces.
Yeah. And so, well, Luke takes it down. The first pot, he's back to his starting stack.
The Premier League Poker 5, if I could win that, that'd be great. I've come second last year, and to win this would be a dream.
It's bubblegum Schwartz. You're supposed to be chewing gum.
It's always fun to wind people up and rustle their feathers and stuff.
Your little four's good. Ooh, you would call any bet.
God might deliver a queen now. You never know.
Like that. In your eye, David Benjamin, you arrogant guy. Think you can angle me? You just got so pwned, it's a joke. I really don't care if I come out and last. It's not a big deal to me. I win millions of dollars online. There's so much in mind. I'm so calm. I don't even care about this.
I hate poker so much. Sick. No, sick.
I didn't mean to kick that. Oh, watch out. So dumb. Got JC out, and that is what I'm talking about.
That's what you're looking
why'd you slow roll? Such an easy call. I think I've got quite a lot of respect for my colleagues.
It is so much fun playing hands with Bubblegum because he just goes ballistic if things go, and he makes good, and he plays well. He's it's gonna be fun.
I'm looking forward to playing with him because I feel like he's gonna be one of these guys who's gonna look to attack me, and my history against players like that is quite good.
I guess quite a unique guy. He's beaten me in some strange spots, I guess you could say, but he's a tough player. Definitely, playing at another level, and it'll be entertaining.
I mean, I expect to make the final table and do well on the final table, that's for sure. Be a huge disappointment if I miss the final table, but I highly doubt that's going to happen.
We'll be back after the break as Group A's third league match continues here in Vienna. Welcome back to Season 5 of Premier League Poker from the stunning Austrian capital of Vienna. Group A is back in action down in their third league match. Let's rejoin your commentators Jesse May and Daniel Cates.
This is Premier League Poker 5. $125,000 just to sit down. 16 ways, that makes $2 million in the prize pool, plus the $200,000 added by the sponsor.
Some little weird thing. You could win from either side. It was really cool. I read a little story about it.
2 10s for Erik Seidel. My guess is you ran into Erik Seidel in Australia last year. Might have played with him in some of the big tournaments.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I haven't played many hands against him. I actually don't know a whole lot about how he plays, to be honest.
Luke's 3-bet this. It was a raise by Seidel, opening to 5, and Luke's made it 11.
Made it 11?
Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry. Seidel limped for 2, and Luke's made it 11. That's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
More of an isolation sort of punish the limper type of thing?
Yeah. It's surprising that Seidel limped 10s. That's very, very surprising. I would expect him to raise almost all the time. And I don't recall him limping in the past.
What would the reason? I don't either. What would the reason be for it?
I don't know. Maybe he just thinks Nens isn't that great of a hand like 8-handed. That's my best guess. I don't really like Luke's isolate. I think it's a little bit too loose in this situation. From my experience, like King Jack doesn't play particularly well versus 2 limpers. Should probably just be limping.
He's got Seidel off the 10s, and I mean, look at the way Seidel played those 10s. Just check fold the flop.
Yeah, well, that's reasonable. I mean, like if Luke decides to barrel or has a queen, he's in really bad shape. I don't blame his folds with 10s at all. I'm really surprised he limped though and just like played him the way that he did. And it looks like Luke actually played that hand pretty well. I'm surprised that the other guys folded pairs in that spot.
I just wondered, Daniel, I mean, to me, there's these league dynamics already coming into it. Laak and Tony are on 20 points, but then there's this bunch. Trickett on 14, Seidel and Frankenberger both on 13, and then a big drop off to the bottom 3. So there's this sort of idea that Trickett, Frankenberger, and Seidel, those being the 3 sort of on the bubble in the top 5 spots, that they would have the most to gain by, like, I don't know, getting 4th, 5th, or 6th in this particular heat. You know, and then going for and then like because it might be easier to go for a win next heat, but guarantee yourself top 5 rather than risk getting knocked out early this heat.
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. So you're saying that it's better for him to get like, in a sense, it's better than to get like 5th or 6th.
Then polarize themselves to 1st, 2nd, 7th, or 8th this heat.
That's actually pretty interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, yeah, I guess if they like give themselves too many points, like they can be targeted last heat and then get less. But I mean, on the other hand, you can't really control what place you get, and also, I mean, you can't really, you just can't control what place you get. I mean,
folding the first 3 levels is one way.
Yeah. I guess you could fold your way to victory. It'd be a pretty interesting strategy. Just fold every hand.
Well, we can talk about this more. This pot, Schwartz, around this 67,000. Seidel's on the flush draw. I guess this is Schwartz's 2nd barrel here. He bet the flop. He's been called by Seidel with the flush draw, Franklin with the 6s, and now he's bet 1/3 pot on turn. He's actually now got the best hand. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
This is a pretty weird hand. Schwartz is doing some stuff, that's for sure. I don't know what his plan is here.
Seidel, has he made a nice check here?
Yeah. This is the check that I thought Luke should have made before with the flush. Like, again, now Luke can value himself if he has, like, aces or whatever, and he can bluff if he actually has a bluff.
it's become a really tricky spot for Luke, hasn't it? Because Ace King obviously does have showdown value, but that 10 of diamonds gives you the opportunity to kind of bluff out a lot of hands that are beating you.
Yeah, well, I'd say that Ace King doesn't have a whole lot of showdown value, pretty much no matter what the action, unless Seidel like check called like the Ace Jack of Spades on the turn. That's about the only thing I can imagine it beating.
Right.
I guess that is a little bit, but not like a whole lot. If Luke wants to win this pot, he's got to bet at it.
And he's bet 60,000 into 107.
Yeah. My guess is he's trying to get Seidel off like 8s or something like that he thinks he might have after calling that bet.
Flush is good.
Oh, wow, he called his hands.
Seidel didn't raise with the king-high flush. Certainly an indication that he's in no hurry to, sees more value in survival than in accumulating, getting Luke to a value raise or something like that.
Yeah, it definitely does seem to be the case.
I have 13 points, and it's of critical importance that I get more points today. Lots of them. I like the idea of, all these good players matching up against each other, and it's a tough challenge to play these guys.
Erik Seidel is a cyborg, like the micros showed. He has silicon chips in his head so that he always makes the right play.
He just had incredible success at like super high buy-in tournaments where basically you have like some of the best players in the world playing. So, and this is a super high buy-in event. So he'll be tough.
He's brilliant. His experience in live poker is second to none. And like I say before, I don't really think he's going to be making many mistakes.
You play, you try and make some decisions. You make some good ones and some bad ones. I don't know.
In the first heat, Seidel was much more willing to make thin value raises than even in the first level. He got it all in on the turn with a pair of aces in the first heat, in the first level, and definitely he's made a decision that a bagel is bad for him here. I'm sure of it.
I think Luke will do well this.
7-4.
Raise.
8 raise, 5,000.
Luke's obviously playing lots and lots of hands. On the other hand, he's getting lots of playable hands too. 7-9 of diamonds there. We saw him with the ace king. I mean, he's there's he's certainly having hands that are raisable.
Yeah. He's getting flush draw hands. He can make flushes.
And and I mean, the high variance approach is probably, there's no reason for him to be scared of it right now, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too. Because he's gotta make something happen here, or else he's like in real big trouble for the next heat.
He's definitely been the table captain, and in this kind of spot, what do you do if you're Katchalov? You pretty much have to fold most turns, don't you?
Here's what you do. You just pray to the poker gods that a 5 rolls off on the turn. That's about your only option.
Katchalov's actually in position here, and Luke slipped it to him.
Yeah. Luke's check seems okay. I guess he's trying to catch some sort of float by Katchalov. And it's a pretty dry board also. There aren't too many draws Katchalov can have. And I guess Katchalov could have floated with king, queen maybe, or it's kind of loose, especially if the gate raised from early position. Or maybe 8-7 suited, a few things like that.
What size value bet would you like to see here by Luke? That's basically pot size.
I don't know if I like pot. I think I like 3/4 or something like that. Something that's believable as a bluff. Because that's what Schwartz basically wants to try to represent. He wants to try to represent a hand that gave up on the turn and is now bluffing the river that's not a jack. And Katchalov just didn't seem to buy it for a second.
One raise, 5,000.
I mean,
Three raise, 13.
feels like most of the time Katchalov is flatting with that sort of hand in the first level. What would the reason be for deciding to 3-bet it? Just changing things up, or is it about Trickett opening a lot, or?
You know, I really don't know. Maybe it's because Trickett opened in early position and Katchalov feels like he can't really call because the hand's a little bit too weak to call. Or they're like too shallow for them to call it versus like aces or something. Could have something to do with the positions. Whereas I imagine if in later positions, Katchalov's certainly calling.
Trickett's feeling like, geez, if I hit my cards, I'm golden, but they're actually quite similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
One check.
Katchalov's almost certainly going to win this pot now.
And Katchalov kind of has to bet this, right? Because you're expecting Trickett to peel. It's not like he was never expecting him to fold to the 3-bet. It was just a small one, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you make it the smaller the 3-bet, the more likely, the more hand side Sam can have. And Sam's opening pretty wide, so I really like his bet. In addition, like Sam will probably 4-bet ace-king, meaning that he's not going to have too many like nutted kings on that flop. Maybe he can have like king, queen, or king, jack. But other than that, well, king, queen, king, jack, king 10. Those hands hit, but there aren't too many other hands. If Sam has got like pocket 8s or whatever, he's in a ton of trouble. If he's got like what he had, like queen, jack suit, he's just gonna fold.
3, 4. 4, 4. 5, 4. 6 raise, 6,000.
Here comes Phil. He's opened the jack 4. He's opened the,
7, 4.
I think the 5-7 or something like that. He's got the kings.
1, 4. 2, 4.
10-8 suit's a good hand. It's a shame it's not a cash game where they're deeper. That would much more suit Luke's style right now. He's just playing all these suited connectors and stuff. Like trying to get draws and big hands post flop, but he's just like not really connecting.
3 checks on the flop. Oh my gosh. 3 hands that actually have equity, and now Phil's he's just slammed this turn. Did Luke miss a bet on the flop, number 1? And number 2, you know, what do you think about this bet on the turn?
I think the bet on the turn's really standard. I mean, he's got a flush draw. He thinks it might be good if he gets there. And, you know, he's got fold equity. These guys can fold. Also, was he out of position or in position?
He's on the button. Luke's on the button. It was checked to him on the flop.
It's interesting that they got checked to him.
And checked on the turn. Checked to him on the turn as well.
I personally like betting the flop. I mean, he's got a decent amount of fold equity. If he bets the flop, and he can value bet, like if he hits a 10, etc. I just feel like the good things in general will happen if he bets flop.
Once Laak calls on the turn, Luke.
Ace king's good. Ace king.
Yeah, I was going to say he knows Luke's. He knows Laak. Phil's got a king.
Yeah, ace king, you're good. You're good.
I'm going to show my hand.
You've got the best hand, whatever happens.
No, I know I have a good hand.
You've got the best hand. You've got the winning hand. 100%. You've got the winning hand. We could both mock our pairs. We could mock king 10 here.
I don't want to show. It's too pretty to show. It's too pretty.
Well, who's first to show? Isn't it?
I'll show you. No, I know it. I know it. It's too pretty to show. I mean, what can they have there?
It's quite funny.
That's great that he just.
That's great, Phil.
I mean, quad 5s is out there, right?
Don't it, son?
Never be too careful.
He just likes to bet. I've noticed.
I would have played quads exactly the same way, so it was a good play.
It could have been a cool if you ran into quads. That's it. Goodbye.
I was definitely.
That was the first time I've seen Bubblegum check the river when he had error in my life, you know?
Tony G and myself are lined up at 20 points. I'm in very good stroke right now. It feels great. I'm disappointed with some super blunder, like, they weren't even mistakes. They were just like, oh, Phil didn't count how many big blinds that was, and it was 5, meaning I can call with anything, and I'm never folding ace-9 there in a million years, but, well, that's what happens when you're kind of like in a daydream mode. So I daydreamed a few times.
Phil's got his moves and his angles. That's going to help him a little bit, but I think most people have clocked onto him. He might be able to get away with that stuff to like Frankenberger or someone, but he's definitely not one of the favorites.
He's got this crazy image, but at his core, he's a smart, tight player.
I think sometimes you'll see Phil Laak do some pretty crazy things.
It's like when you're in a tournament and you're at the final table and you're thinking, oh, now I'm going to play like my A game. No, you should be playing your A game like to get the chips that get you there, because you don't even get a chance to play your A game if you don't really squeeze all the juice you can out of it. So the key thing is think A+ game 24/7.
These guys are having fun.
I think you got Max.
Yeah, those tails definitely a bit more facetious than ours.
This one?
A little bit more.
Trickett is a guy, as we said, 14 points. You don't want to put yourself under too much pressure in the 4th heat. Obviously, everyone's going to be under a certain kind of pressure. But
1-4. Raise 5,000.
Yeah, maybe it would have worked better for Trickett if he played tighter.
3-4.
Save him some headaches. But he is pretty good, so
Raise 15.
maybe just face it doesn't matter.
Katchalov's opened this, and this is the first 3-bet from Seidel. He's made it 15 on the button. Does he have value to try and set mine here against Seidel?
Not really. They're playing 2K, 4K, right? Or
No, that's the next hand. This is the last. There's still 1,000, 2,000.
Oh, I guess he kind of does. They're deep. They've got 150 big blinds. They're kind of deep. Or let's see, yeah, about 150. I mean, it's a little thin, but it's probably all right. Oh, Seidel, I imagine, is good enough to get away from an overpair or a pair if Katchalov pops a set.
This is must call for Katchalov.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine Katchalov doing anything other than call. Right now, he's just Hollywooding.
Leaves like 100k back, puts like 300 in, and then Patrick says call, and Jungleman says yeah, I'm all in. And then
He's click raised this. Is he trying to represent something really strong here, like 3-4s?
Yeah, I think it looks like he's going for a huge bluff.
When you say that, you mean that once he commits to this line, he actually has to go 2 and 3 barrels?
At least 2, maybe 3, or he can just get there. I mean, that's a little, that's preferable. Yeah, I mean, as you can see from the click it, like Seidel even peeled with King Queen, like one of the worst hands he can have. So, I mean, that's one reason why Katchalov should continue. He just clearly doesn't think he's going to fold much out from the min raise. I'm surprised Seidel called with this, but
right.
And I think it's a bad call.
Because he could catch a king, and then what is he going to do? He's still going to be faced with a big bet on the turn and a big bet on the river, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't really like Seidel's call. I just feel like it's obvious that Katchalov is going to keep firing, or Katchalov just has him completely screwed with the set. I mean, there are many ways that this hand can play out that Seidel's happy. And now, now he's just gonna fold. There's nothing else to do. He could get really crazy and raise. I don't even know what options he has to win the pot now.
They know each other pretty well, Katchalov and Seidel. I wonder if Katchalov picked up on what we were saying before, that maybe Seidel's not looking to play big pots, and so he's like, well, it's a great time for a huge bluff. The guy's really, really big pot shy. 21 hands first level, Daniel. What's been the big story for you so far?
Well, right now, Luke's really active. Sam's really active. Looks like you were saying, Erik's just hanging out, not trying to get into some high variance spots. And then not totally sure what everyone else's plan is, if they have one.
Poker's elite continue to battle it out here in Vienna for maximum points in this league match after the break.
Also, I guess the best way not to play a big pot is just try and end it pre-flop. But
I don't know about that.
I mean, with a pair of sixes, you don't really mind playing a big pot when you hit, do you? I mean,
yeah, it's true. In a sense, you like kind of like if you can end it pre-flop, then yeah, you don't play a big pot. But if they call, you better get ready because then it's gonna be.
You better get ready.
It's gonna be. It'll definitely be a variance fest if you know, people call a lot.
Same situation. Very next hand, instead of Katchalov raising on the button, he's raised in the cutoff, and Seidel's basically had the same hand, it's just called this time.
It's really interesting.
Is it just variance? I mean, just trying to switch up and stuff like that, or?
You know, I really don't know. I'm not 100% sure why he's doing this. Maybe he was trying. Yeah, like I guessed before. Maybe he's trying to induce a raise from Seidel's bluff. Like now he won't do it or something from this position, but that doesn't make much sense.
How does this call feel to you from Seidel from the small blind on this? I mean, what's the plan?
This is another one of those spots where you're just like you're praying to the poker gods, and you're really hoping that you see a 5 in the near future because it's not going to get much prettier. It's strange.
Is it a good story for Queen or a 9?
Not really. I don't think I'd like this play that much.
Like if you're Katchalov here and you're on ace-10, you know, you could even find a call with that?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, especially for just 20K. And also, like, Katchalov is going to have a pretty good... He's in position, so he's going to have, like, you know, he's going to be able to play his hand really well on the last street. And that's one thing to keep in mind when you have something marginal like ace-10.
But he doesn't. He has a full house. And Seidel now... I mean, he could bet big here.
Yeah, he could. He has to like, if you just he has to kind of guess what Katchalov has when he calls a turn. Like if he thinks Katchalov can have like aces and like ace high and things that are like bluff catchers versus a big bet, and thinks he can have them really often, then yeah, he could bet big and try to get him to fold. But he also has to be worried that Katchalov has a queen or a 9, which in fact he does. So it's like a pretty ugly spot for Seidel, given the line he took, I think. On another note, I like Katchalov's bet sizing on the river. Like it really looks like Seidel's never gonna call in that spot.
I mean, how many hands do you really like to play with someone before you trust your numbers? You know, in the thousands. I mean, you know.
It depends on what numbers exactly. If we're talking like pre-flop numbers, not a whole lot. But if we're talking about like river continuation bet numbers or like numbers of like some weird spots, it's gonna require like at least several hundred hands or so. Like those sorts of numbers can take a long time to really get like a clear idea of what's going on.
Trickett's opened this under the second position, sorry, and Frankland just calling with the ace-king. Now, I mean, obviously, you know, at this level, 3-betting, I don't know.
I think 3-bet would be the standard play. Did Trickett open an early position?
Second, under the gun +1.
Okay, maybe that has something to do with it. Or maybe he wants the other guys to squeeze. That doesn't even make much sense, though.
No. Franklin's in the big blind, so.
Oh, okay. So that's not an issue. Yeah, I guess he's just trying to be tricky.
S-king.
I mean, it's like there's been a couple of hands here that haven't even felt like normal tournament hands. They felt more like hands that you'd play in a super satellite.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff going on here. A lot of non-standard hands. It's kind of interesting to watch, actually.
Frankland with 280, I mean, I could just fill you in a little bit. He's been overall in Group A probably the most, I'd say the most aggressive. You know, he always has been taking the lead in pots. He's been sort of 3-betting and 4-betting light. You know, he hasn't been the most active, but he's been quite aggressive, especially pre-flop. Like, so that's weird for him.
Yeah, yeah, it is weird for him to like just flat ace king when he's been so aggressive in general. It's not what I'd expect at all.
He is a player who's he's from the UK. He sort of hangs out with guys like Chris Moorman and John Ames, Jake Cody. You know, some of those, some of the real super demons on that scene.
That's 12,000.
Now, there's a question of, we saw that Seidel was looking like he didn't want to play big pots. I wonder how much trouble, is this a cooler for him here? He's called in the big blind. Now check called here on the flop.
Well, it was a cooler, and now it's going to be a little bit harder. We're going to lose a ton of money. I mean, he's still in a tough spot, but that 6 is going to slow Trickett down a lot.
So you think Trickett might, maybe even should check this turn for some reasons?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame a check that much, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 3 streets also, just because it's not super easy for Seidel to have a 6. Shouldn't be that worried about it.
25.
And with this hand that Trickett has, you want to be getting 3 streets of value against a 10?
Yeah, generally speaking. If that wasn't the turn, it'd be absolutely 3 street value for sure. I mean, and now it's just like a question of how often does Seidel have a 6? How often is he going to hero call down with a 10, etc. And that 2 doesn't really make that much of a difference. I mean, Seidel's not going to have a 2 very often. At this point, it's just whether he has a 6 or a 10 or not, and what he's going to pay. How often he's going to pay off the 10. It helps that Trickett has 2 jacks because now Seidel's hand is much more likely a better 10. Like King 10, Queen 10, Ace 10, and something that's more likely to pay off than say Jack 10. It helps very slightly, but a little.
So I mean, what's the most? How is Trickett going to make this decision, and how big should his bet be if he makes it? That kind of thing. I mean,
well, it probably shouldn't be inordinately large because the larger it is, the more it seems for Seidel that Trickett doesn't really care whether he has a 6 or not, or thinks that that his hand's so strong that that him having a 6 occasionally doesn't really matter or whatever. So I'd just say bet maybe 2/3 pot or something standard to try to get him to make a crying call with the hand exactly of what he has, or maybe even less. And it looks like he does go for 3 streets, and in fact he does bet about 2/3 pot.
And Seidel, he obviously is going to hate this.
Yeah.
It's like he keeps seeming to get, he's getting the tough decisions today. Seidel right now has exactly 300 or a few chips more back. So if he folds here, you know, he just lost the lead he had and is right back in the thick of the pack. Calling, and he's called. Is going to knock him back to 240 or so. And nice bet, he says, at Trickett.
Looks like Trickett played that hand pretty well. Got maximum value, and yeah, I feel like he just couldn't have gotten much more value than that, especially with the way the board ran off.
Halfway through the second level, and we haven't seen much chip movement. With that win for Trickett, he now moves up into second position. But it is Eugene Katchalov who is in the lead with 403,000. We return to Vienna after the break as Group A's third league match continues. The best players in the world, it's all about how many streets of value they get, right? How they play all those streets and stuff like that.
It's about a lot of things, really. I mean, it's definitely about getting as much value as you can. It's about getting off as many bluffs as you can. It's about knowing when to be tight and knowing when to be loose. It's about adjusting your opponent, and that's what makes the best.
Boy, Luke would love some action. And I guess, I mean, if Luke gets, if somebody 3-bets him here, he pretty much has a lot of reasons to just try and go with it all the way, if you know what I mean. Because,
yeah.
Maximum callers.
I mean, even if he thinks he's gonna, you want to even take on a big flip right now. He's got a lot of upside for that.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. He wants variance in his shoes. I think you're right.
And what he didn't want, I'm sure, is 4 callers and then miss the flop.
Yeah,
we'll see if he just shuts down completely. Laak's let out with a nut flush draw.
I don't think I like this lead.
Into 5 players?
For a couple reasons I'll explain in a bit. Luke's done with his pot. One of the issues with leading is like he doesn't really want to fold out worse flush draws. Well, I guess won't really happen. And stack scissors, I guess it's whatever. Like, he does fold out some things he wants to fold out, and other flush draws won't really fold. What he wants to be cautious is of like getting better hands to fold with his bets or raises, and also like the possibility of like keeping worse flush draws in and like or having someone make a mistake with a worse flush draw. He has to think about those 2 options when he's deciding to raise or check raise or whatever.
At least you guys are all clever enough to see what I'm up to, so it loses its value. You know?
Anyway, what's happened here is Laak tried to bet 25. It was called a string
In the
bet.
words of John Cabot,
He's now had to bet 10.
Yeah, you've got a chance now anyway.
And
you really wanted to do it.
This is a really aggressive play by Seidel, isn't it?
Kinda. I'm guessing he's like going for a raise fold or something like that.
Right.
Or like, huh?
So what do you mean by that is he's put that 60, meaning that's like the last money he's putting in the pot. He feels like he can test Laak right now. That if Laak can go with this, then he's just going to call it fold. Laak can only re-raise it with 2 pairs or a set. That sort of idea.
Yeah, or a big flush draw, which is what he has. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. If he does, he's going to put Seidel in a really tough spot. I'm guessing, yeah, he's like raising partly, but mostly a little bit to see where he's at, but also like to like try to get people to fold something, because he is vulnerable to like every card in the deck.
To me, that's really, I don't want to say weak by Laak, but he's got 20 points and Seidel's got like 13. You know? Don't you just put pressure on this guy right now if you're Phil Laak?
Well, it's like kind of tough because you don't know that Seidel's raising in 9s.
He might have a set.
Yeah, that's what Laak's probably thinking. He's probably worried that Seidel's really strong here.
All in?
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I like this bet that much.
Wow.
I was afraid of that happening. I don't like my spot. If I fold,
I mean, I feel like this is one of the spots where like Seidel's the best hand a ton, but on the other hand, like he's never gonna call with better, and he gets like kind of free rolled in the spot. I guess it's all right, but it's a spot that'll work out very often in Seidel's favor, but like there'll be a number of times where he just like kind of vomits money away to a set, and yeah, he's gonna win the pot. Against Laak's exact hand, he played it perfectly. Maybe makes a bigger raise on the flop and then shoves the turn. But against a flush draw, it's definitely not the way that you want to play it. Even though I don't like it too much on the hole. Maybe like a bet fold or something would be better.
For a guy who looked like he was trying to play safe poker, Seidel's just like he just pulled back his overcoat and showed the S for Superman there. Like, I mean, he's a madman.
Yeah, no kidding. So much for just chilling out.
I just wonder. I mean, it's always so easy in hindsight, but it's almost like Seidel put Laak on that kind of hand or something. I mean, it was a big, bold play to make.
Yeah, I agree. It just kind of seemed like that.
Number one raise,
And it's like a reasonable thing to put him on, especially when he just calls there. Maybe it's like it's Laak, so certainly just going to shove a set with all the draws out there.
Seidel is, if you want to pick a guy, you know, to make a sick read, I guess, you know, that's pretty much the story of his career, really.
Yeah, no kidding.
Tony is sharp. That was a sick one. Oh, that's so funny. It's the exact hand you'd want to do with 3-4. Like you'll see it for 10s, but not 25. Sorry, guys. I was gonna shove, but like. Yeah.
They decided that Phil Laak had 3-4 for a straight draw there. That's quite good. Maybe it was easier to put him on a hand than I thought. I don't know if Frankenberger's done with this or not.
Sam raised under the gun +1.
Correct.
Then he should just fold, I think. Because Sam's range is going to be pretty strong. And with many of his bosses, he's going to continue on the turn, etc. On the bright side, Frankenberger does have a backdoor flush available. That makes it calling a little better, although it's probably a leak.
And it's also one of those things where if he doesn't want to fold, calling would seem standard, but what he's done here is min raise. What are you supposed to think of your Sam? Does it look like a jack? Does it look like somewhere between a 3 or a bluff? I mean, what do you think?
If I was Sam, I'd just be thinking, what is going on right now? Frankenberger's play is actually kind of interesting. If I was Sam, I think there's a decent chance Frankenberger has a jack, honestly. And it's like trying to get like a cheap showdown or doing something funky. Something like that. Doesn't really seem like he can have that many threes.
It doesn't.
I might even consider 3-betting for 1, the chance that he goes all in with a jack, and 2, the chance that he does something funky with like the hand that he has, or like some other kind of hand.
Check.
You can only really have ace-3 suited. And when he checks the river, if I was Sam, I would just think that Frankenberger has a jack for sure. Was just trying to raise the CF free showdown. But oddly, Frankenberger just has like strange semi-bluff.
Someone bet 37.
And Frankenberger, I'd love to see a shove here. Obviously, Trickett would hate it, but it would be
really? With the third 3 out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, Frankenberger's range when he raises the flop and like shoves the river is like bluffs, I guess, and like quads and like pocket jacks. I mean, he's not gonna have. I can't imagine him having like aces or something.
What would Sam do? Fall over in his chair?
Yeah. He'd vomit all over the floor.
It's quite funny because Trickett was in here in the Group B heat, last Group B heat, and of course there was quads 3 times in the first 50 hands, which I'm sure you found out later on.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Does this happen all the time at the table?" You know, 3 times. I think it's the only 3 quads I've seen this year.
Yeah. Oh, and there was a straight flush on that table too at some point.
And a straight flush. That's right.
That was a really weird table in general. Like 2 guys with like Vanessa Selbst and Ben had like 6 and 1 chips remaining, and they somehow worked it up to like 100,000, and then like Vanessa got like 3rd, etc.
Katchalov's open. Seidel has called. Obviously, things are much different now for Seidel now that he's got a few chips back. Him and Katchalov are both kind of cruising around through this heat. Frankenberger's got the kind of hand you really do like seeing the flop within position as well.
Yeah. Any big suit cards are always pretty. This is gonna be maybe an interesting hand. I kind of think Frankenberger is most likely to win this spot.
whether he calls or raises. Does it matter?
It does matter a bit. If you could see Katchalov's hand, he's certainly gonna fold if he puts on the aggression. But it's kind of hard to put Katchalov on ace-3 specifically.
But also, I mean, a call is fairly strong. I mean, well, now it's obvious he's got a really strong hand, but a call doesn't preclude you from having a big ace if you're...
That's true. But it'd be hard to get him to fold if he doesn't take an aggressive route when he's out of position, that's all.
Right.
He is in position,
He's in
though.
position, yeah.
All right, so that helps a lot. Like, you have way more options when you're in position. And now, I mean, maybe Katchalov check calls the turn. I kind of see him just folding. Can't really imagine him check calling unless it's a small bet. Looks pretty small, though. Yeah, he's not going to fold for that.
So you kind of like the bet size?
I don't know if I like it, but it happens to be the best size. Because Katchalov can have like big diamonds. Well, I guess he can't really have big diamonds. The fact that he can't have big diamonds makes me like it more. Wow, he folded for just 18K. That's pretty crazy.
You can't avoid those prices, huh?
4 to 1. That's pretty tough. Say that much.
The action is heated up a little bit, hasn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Up there.
Seen some action, some strange hands, and some plays.
4 folds.
How old is Frankenberger?
I believe he's in his late 30s, but he, you know, he's come to poker very late. He's been playing only 2 years. He was, he's had a sort of a full career in the financial services industry before he even ever saw poker.
Yeah, I heard he was like really successful at that.
I think so.
I saw the color of the other one as well. Just flip the other one. It's the nearest one to me.
This one?
That one. I saw the color of it.
But it's easy. I mean, I feel like it's easy to see when you talk to Frankenberger that, you know, no matter what he's doing or what he's thinking, he still considers himself like a real new student of the game. You know, like that he hasn't seen as many hands as.
A real what?
Sort of a student of the game. You know, that he's just started playing, basically. I mean, you've been playing years, many more years than Frankenberger.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Bet 12,000.
Sorry, Trickett's on the button here, and so I guess so. Franklin's check called this flop with the kings. This is going to start getting interesting. It's like he just slipped the flop. He raised pre-flop and now has just check called the flop and checked the turn. You like this line he's taking?
Well, on the flop, he really doesn't have much of a choice. The other alternative is like leading the flop, which is also reasonable. As played, it's like kind of standardish. It's like a line you don't really want to have to take, but it ends up being the line that you're forced to take a lot of the time.
It's the only line that, wow.
He folded?
Yeah, he folded.
That's a bad fold. Oh, he overbet. I guess that's why he did it. Yeah, that makes his fold a little bit more reasonable.
Sam made an overbet on the turn?
Yeah, he made a small overbet.
Trickett's taking that down. Wow, that was, yeah, that was Franklin just mucking that hand. Check call, check fold with the kings.
That's a big fold, I have to say. As it happened, Trickett had tons of equity, and that makes his overbet really powerful in that spot because it puts Franklin on, puts him in a really tough spot.
Sam Trickett establishes a lead after 2 levels in this crucial match. Join us after the break for more Premier League action. Welcome back to Premier League Poker 5 here in Vienna. Our Premier League players are all battling it out for points in this league format in a bid to progress through to that final table. Let's go back over to your commentary team.
Franklin's down to like
2 years ago.
240. There's this real nitty element going on at this table right now with 8 players left, and Trickett's certainly been. I guess he's been allowed to exploit it. I mean, obviously he's gotten some hands, but he's been allowed to be opening, hasn't he, Daniel? More than the other players. They're not opening in front of him. They're not 3-betting him.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of, you know, it's got a lot. He's able to do a lot of stuff, and he's taking advantage of it right now. No one's really messing with him at all,
except for Frankenberger.
Sort of. I mean, he's calling pre-flop, but he's not 3-betting him.
Right.
And there's a big difference between those two things.
It was Katchalov that's raised this, called by GN Seidel. And, you know, the blinds are 2 and 4, but they're big enough that you don't really expect to see a betting 4 or 5 calls. I mean, Frankenberger's on the button here. Would you have a squeezing range here if you were Frankenberger?
Yeah, I would. I don't know if Tony G's well, it's Katchalov. Okay, Katchalov's maybe a little bit better to squeeze against, I guess. I don't think Tony is opening super wide, but we'll just wait and see for that. Yeah, I actually kind of like a squeeze. He only really has to worry about Katchalov folding, and the other guy's much more likely to fold than Katchalov.
Well, he's gone for value on the button with the flop, and boom, Tony G. Everyone else has missed.
Sad thing is Tony G is not going to get any action.
A bet here is obviously not going to work, but what kind of idea is it by Frankenberger? I mean, 57 in there. Do you like trying to take the pot down here?
Well, one thing is that Frankenberger does have some backdoor outs. That helps a little bit. On that note, I mean, he is betting into like 3 different players on a board that does hit some of these players' ranges a little bit. It's definitely not thrilled about it, that's for sure. Or I'm not thrilled about it. It works more in a tournament than in a cash game, that's for sure. Uh-oh.
Wow. That card would have also hit Seidel on the nut flush draw angle.
Yeah.
But does Frankenberger now have too much value equity not to bet, or too much equity to bet and risk being blown off the pot?
Depends partly on stack sizes. That's one thing I'd be concerned about.
He's got 274 back. Tony's got exactly the same, basically.
I'm trying to think. I would have probably. I think betting's reasonable. I can see Tony calling with like 9s or something like that, or like 8x. The fact that he cold called versus what's his face's
Katchalov's opening.
Yeah,
yeah.
The fact that it's a cold call probably makes his range a little tighter. So
Jack Queen suited, 2 9s.
I'd be somewhat concerned for that reason. I don't really think he has 7s.
Right.
And then he may have to. Frankenberger may have to, like, if he bets the turn, may have to commit to a river barrel to try to get Tony G off a 10.
I could have waited. I mean, I could have made him show. Just thought it would add to the drama.
We understand you didn't want to show that bluff. Don't worry.
No, I wouldn't have had to show either way.
There is this thing about not how many points. It's not about how many points Schwartz needs, really, as much as, you know, when he's thinking about heat number 4, you know, he needs to put himself in a position where not just a win will get him through, but a first or a second will get him to do something, right? I mean, he's got 3 points now. Doesn't look like 14 points is going to be good enough for 5th place. There's a question of whether or not 19 points will be good enough for 5th place. He's going to be in trouble, actually. So this pot's been opened by Tony G, and Luke's got on the button. I think.
Good check. Good check. Bet 10,000. 3 call.
Francesco si rompe l'officio da 12, 1, 2 Runde.
Good check.
seems pretty sure that Tony's got the best hand. Question. Yeah.
I can beat 4s. I'll do that.
I would consider turning my hand into a bluff on the turn if I was Luke.
I think Tony doesn't have a flush draw very often there.
Well, he does it sometimes. A handful of the time. He's got it like 30% of the time, I think. But like if Tony with a lot of, well, certainly with pocket pairs, small pocket pairs, he's gonna have to fold. I guess he can't really have a 9 that easily. If he has a 5 or yeah, if he has a 5 or any sort of pocket pairs, maybe some bad 9s, he's in a really tough spot on the turn. And then also Luke can bluff some rivers as well.
Tony G and Luke played a big pot in the last heat. Tony made a big laydown of kings on the river against Luke, and I asked him afterwards, how'd you get away from the hand? He said, Luke's never going to bluff me. He doesn't want to bluff me.
One call.
Franklin's open this. Trickett's called with, oh wow.
Tony G.
I'm gonna raise it.
Is he just, okay. That should end this, I guess.
Yeah, I think this hand's over.
I couldn't. So tilted, what? No one could put me on ace king. Can't put me on ace king. I mean,
Can't beat ace king.
if you got a pair, like
Put you on ace king, I'm going to fold as well.
Midway through the third level, and not for the first time, Daniel, we're going 3 full levels without losing a player.
Kev. Yeah, it's decent.
I mean, certainly in the last Group B match, it was more than that, but not for a lack of effort. I think 2 players were essentially taken down. And of course, in the Group A first match, there was the early exit by Ben Wilanowski.
There's some guys getting kind of short. Luke's kind of short.
Just shows you how the tactics change. I think in the opening game of Group A, we lost a bunch of players early.
I was once in a pot, right? I'm sat there, Jack high call. I was once in a pot in a tournament, and I've like moved all in, and I think I had like Jack 10.
Well, Luke's open this, and then checking the flop is kind of more standard these days as far as like getting bets later on, or what?
Yeah. It's also dependent on like how good of a hand you have. Here, Luke has got a king that he can't really get 3 streets of value from, so he decides to pot control and check it, and maybe induce some bluffs from Frankenberger.
Or get 2 streets, the later 2 streets of value, and he's going to call you quite lighter.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Frankenberger, I mean, what if he's on the hook here? He might either try and bluff this river or even make some kind of really sick call with ace high.
Yeah. I see him more likely making a bluff, not a bluff, sorry, a hero call with it. Check raise on the river would be pretty wild though, that's for sure.
I mean, can Luke put him on a queen here a lot of times, or is it a draw a lot of times, or is it anything else?
I think Frankenberger does have a queen a lot. Probably not a draw because I think he's likely to bet that.
Right, like 10 jack he would have just bet on the turn.
Yeah. And then occasionally he's got a hand like ace 10 or ace jack that is thinks is good, and he's trying to catch a bluff with it / draw.
Luke's bet 40K, 2/3 of the pot, and Frankenberger's just down to guessing, basically.
Yeah. There's also the option of raising.
You keep bringing that up. What were we trying to represent?
Like a slow played set or like a river 2 pair. You know, he could have a few hands.
You like it? You think? I mean, you want to see Luke squirm a little bit, really?
I just want to see crazy plays, honestly. I just want to see weird stuff happen.
It's probably 500. Sunday 500. Someone raises. 20 big blinds.
Yeah, and then there's a 500 on iPoker.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah.
There's a 100 cubed on .fr, so that's like a 500 as well.
I don't play on .fr, but no, I've never played on .fr.
Luke and Franklin talking. Luke's actually been, I guess, playing a lot more tournaments on the internet than he would have several years ago, and he's doing quite well at them. He would have mostly considered himself a heads-up cash player, wouldn't he, Jungleman? And now he's actually been playing a lot more grinding tournaments.
Yeah, it's
38.
Yeah, you know, just tell every single time I see him, he's like playing some tournament. He's talking about some tournament. It's like practically a tournament player. He tells me he's great at them.
I think he actually won 2 of them the Sunday before he came, but Franklin there just slipped in a little 3-bet with the 7-4 suited, and he was just all over Phil Laak. Just picked it off. Phil had the ace-deuce. Montesino Casino in Vienna. It's not your first time to Vienna, Jungle, is it? I know you came here for some training, seminars and things like that a while back.
Yeah, I've come here a couple times. This is my 3rd time here.
It's there's a lot of poker going on in Austria, isn't there?
Yeah, there was. Like the first time I came here, there were some really big PLO games in Baden. There's like 200, 400 running, like crazy stuff. I didn't think the games were that big.
Yeah, and there's a high limit area here at the Montesino. Goes a couple times. I think we got a big pot brewing here. Tony G has min raised from under the gun. Laak called, and then so did both the blinds, Trickett and Katchalov. So it's been slipped around now to Laak, who's essentially on the button. Pardon me, Tony G to act.
Tony bet?
Yeah, it looks like, which is odd for Tony. Bet into 4 people with 2 9s here, right?
Yeah, I think he. I think the 9s don't have a whole lot of value here, and that a lot of the time he's gonna find himself in some trouble here in some later streets.
Laak's flatted. If you're Katchalov here, is there anything else but a call?
No.
Not even for Katchalov. You don't want to get too tricky right now?
No, you can't really. I mean, the Queen Jack's just not a strong hand at all on the spot. If you were to do anything else, I mean, I could see folding. Well, now you can do something. Now he's got a real hand.
Right. I mean, Katchalov, in fact, probably thinks, well, if Laak's got a queen, he's got me beat, because Laak just seems to have, you know, a queen king or a queen ace here, the way Laak plays, you know, has been playing more often, or.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be definitely worried about being beat if I was Katchalov until the turn, of course. Now, just no fear. Not no fear, but like pretty close to it. I'd probably bet bigger personally if I was Katchalov. Just tons of draws. And
the 9-10 did get there. You know, if Laak had had, and I was a double gutter on the flop, wasn't it? I mean.
Yeah, he could have 9-10. It's definitely possible. Guess he could have had a set. No, I don't think so. He would have probably raised a set on the flop. So, I think Katchalov's only really worried about 9-10. That's definitely a possibility. Making some big folds these days, these guys.
Yes, you'll find out on break, I guess.
How to be totally blank?
Huh?
How to be like completely blank?
Very hard.
That he had 7 clubs or something.
To overcall 2 people on that board.
They just bid out on that card.
You know
Eugene takes that one down. So still a full table of 8. Right now, of course, it's Laak on the short stack. And I wonder if the field will be happy if Laak goes out first. Obviously, being that he's chip leader, it gives them a chance to kind of come up and pass him. But if you're a middle stack, you're kind of almost rooting for Laak in a sense because to do well, because it puts so much pressure on the guys with points who have less points than you.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, this is exactly what Phil's been waiting for.
Everyone's always waiting for pocket kings.
Seem like that. They'll do all the pocket aces while you're waiting for the aces. Wow, it feels like Frankenberger's got a few reasons not to believe Laak is strong here.
Well, the main issue I see is that Phil Laak's stack size is such that he's probably not going to bluff 3-bet too much.
Right.
Although you could say that that's a reason for him to do it more. That being said, like if Frankenberger shoves, Phil Laak is probably not going to fold stack size. 0%. What?
That's not good. It is not good. Who would you give the best scorecard to out of all the players here as far as what they've done with what they've had?
I think Sam Trickett's played pretty well. I don't think he's made a single mistake as far as I've seen him play.
He's got the chip lead on over 400K. Schwartz, bottom of the league right now and bottom of this leaderboard. He's going to have to make something happen. Group A's third league match continues after the break. Lines now 5 and 10,000. The players back from a short break, and there's a situation. I don't want to say suddenly because it's taken 3 levels to get there, but you got 4 players with basically in the 20 to 20 big blind or 20 to 25 big blind range. It's really hard for them to like call pre-flop, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gonna start seeing a lot more shoving pre-flop.
Now Franklin's got the kind of hand or the kind of stack size. He's on 25 big blinds, like that. If he re-raises all in, he's not going to get called unless not going to get called unless he's beat. But I guess he's re-raised small here to induce. Is that what you think he's done, or is he re-raised to fold?
Maybe he's re-raising to try to rep a really strong hand. Maybe he's trying to rep like he has a hand that wants a little action. But in actuality, he's just making like a semi-block where he's committed. I can't imagine he's raised folding here though.
With 25 bigs, for you, ace-queen is too strong to not get it in?
Well, I mean, you can't really raise a fifth of your stack and then fold to a shove. Yeah, I mean, you're not thrilled to get it in, but you can't really fold. You just have too much equity. And as you can see, he's still like, wait, how's he 56%? How's that?
I think it may have something to do with the cards already out. So I think it may have something to do with. And if Franklin loses here, he's going to get a second bagel in a row. I wouldn't say his Premier League is over, but it's not far from it. He may be reduced to having to win his last match. This is everything for him. One of the better flops that misses him completely. But he's definitely gone behind now. And that makes it dicey. 10, queen, or ace, or Franklin. Well, he hit it. That was certainly one of the biggest cards of his young poker career. He must be feeling great right now because not only does he survive, but he takes the chip lead. Overall, do you think he kind of just made the right decision as far as having to go with that hand in that spot like that?
Yeah, I agree with his decision. It's like kind of, in that spot, he's not thrilled with his queen, but he's got to get it in, especially as played. And, Katchalov is going to fold a lot of the time in that situation as well if he's got something with a decent amount of equity, like Jack 10 suited or would be another something like pocket fours or something like that. I think he played it fine, even though I got it in like, well, he happened to get it in good, ironically, but got it in bad versus 9 specifically. No aces dealt this hand.
Here comes Seidel. And a quick call from Luke. He seems to keep picking up these types of hands. I wonder if that was a spot where an all-in shove wouldn't have been a bad idea, or is it just very results-oriented in knowing Seidel's cards? I mean,
well, it's fine actually. The reason why I assume Luke called instead was because he's got a hand that plays really well post-flop. But realistically, Jack 10 suited has great equity versus a lot of hands. And so it's fine and completely standard for him to shove.
Now, on the flop, Luke's chosen the check call option because check raising to get it in, you get it in bad too often?
Yeah, basically. And yeah, his equity is just for most hands that he gets it in with is just not good. That's the big reason. And he doesn't have any card removal or anything. I mean, he's just going to end up winning the spot unless Seidel does something strange.
Looks like he's trying to find a value bet and didn't. As you say, he just wins it.
It helps Luke a little bit.
Sure does.
Anyway, it's good to have you back. That's a big, nice pot.
It's a good pot for me.
It's a nice lift.
I think I'm over 300 for the first time in 3 days.
You're not over 300.
No.
Over 200.
Yeah, I'm over 200.
For you,
That's
your level's
good for me.
200.
Yeah.
Katchalov in the big blind. Quick folds all the way around to Frankland, who not only has a nice hand, but suddenly has the chips to do whatever he wants. And you could kind of assume, Daniel, that Frankland can be really wide here in the cutoff. Now he's got 50 bigs.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the stack sizes behind him. Eugene's pretty short, so he has to watch out for that. But yeah, he could still be pretty wide. He has to worry more about a 20 big blind stack in some ways, just because a 10 big blind stack can't really shove and expect to have fold equity. But a 20 big blind stack is much more likely to shove lighter. And then, other than that, it's just more like a matter of whether Sam 3-bets or not.
Trickett's stack is really awkward. I mean, he's coming off of like 380,000. So, like, I mean, I guess he's re-raised to pass here. Would you agree with the ace-jack? To a 4-bet? Or is he re-raised to shove to a light 4-bet?
I think either the second thing you said, well, yeah, it's definitely either of those, actually. I don't even know if he can get 4-bet and then fold. Kind of funny that Franklin folded.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna fold to a 4-bet, honestly.
I was mentally all in.
That's my guess.
You were, yeah.
In my head, I was all in.
Saying he was mentally all in. No wonder.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to really tell. If he gets 4-bet, it's like a spot for him because he's got a good chip stack, and he probably doesn't want to risk it against like another big stack, in kind of a not so great spot.
Obviously, it happened several times in Group B, but as far as Group A is gone, I think Franklin is the only player who's made 2 or 3 really light 4-bets throughout throughout the course of this Premier League. Well, no, sorry. I take that back. Trickett is the other one who did it. Luke raising from the cutoff, Tony G in the big blind, and Luke checked the flop and has now called Tony's turn bet. And there is a question about whether Tony's going to barrel again here. Does Luke have an ace ever at this spot?
Yeah, he does have aces.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised Tony bet. It's not that standard of a bluff.
Talk this through me. How should Luke think about this?
He mostly has to think about how often Tony bets the turn. Does Tony bet the turn with things that aren't draws?
I don't beat much.
Then you win.
Beat 8-7.
8-7? 8-7?
And some clubs.
He's pretty wide, I have to say. Not only on betting the turn, but also on the river.
9 of clubs.
And how often would Tony bet something? Like if Tony had a 6 or a 10 or things like that, how often would he follow the turn bet up with a river bet? Wouldn't he start checking things like that have showdown equity on the river that he bet on the turn?
Yeah, he would. That's another thing.
You show me?
Show you one card.
You show me one, yeah? That's good enough. Are you going to show me the 8 or the 7 now? The ace 8, ace 7. Can I pick what card you show me?
Show me one. Random.
So I'll pick the one.
If you want, you can pick.
He's trying to speech talk Tony. I mean, obviously he's considering something. He said, will you show me if I fold? He's trying to get, I don't know. Has he picked up some weakness from Tony?
It's possible. He's probably trying to get a read from talking to him.
How would overall, is it a good call or a bad call? Just, in your mind, not knowing anything about what Tony has.
Well, looking at what he has, it's
it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Probably I only got king high. I think it was a bluff as well.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy.
It's a bluff.
Feels like a bluff, yeah. It's a bluff. It's a bad one.
Show me the right card, the right one.
This one?
Yeah. It's a 7.
Oh, wow.
Ace jack maybe.
It's completely blank.
He's not happy about it.
No.
About the situation.
It's a
I
total
wanted to
bust
call.
hand.
I had some more chips I would have called.
I know. That's why I bet.
Oh,
And king queen of clubs.
that hurts.
That would've been a
It
brilliant
surprised you. Tony surprised you there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
It didn't have the heart. I told you. He missed the heart.
He sounded like he was bluffing.
I don't know if it worked though.
Do you know what got me when he said I'll show you one? I was like, that's a bluff. That's a bluff. That's a bluff. That's a bluff.
I was trying to be friendly, like I didn't want to.
I'll show you one as if you want to show him the ace.
Especially in this, because I think if you had it, you just said you'll find out when the cameras show it anyway. It's a new definition of the bottom slip.
Not that far. It wouldn't be that bad. If I had another like
Raise
150.
22. 5 fold, 6 fold.
Behind you.
22.
If I was like the chip leader, yeah, maybe.
Somebody goes all in.
Yeah, but depending on my chips, if I have 600, then.
Well, Seidel's opened this, and Trickett's got a few more chips than Seidel. He's elected to call here.
Super tilt.
What's gonna happen?
3-1 deuces.
4 check.
Seidel just checked it back. It's a really dry board. I mean,
yeah, kind of surprising, although it happens to be the best play. I would imagine a Seidel would be the type to just c-bet boards like this all the time. Maybe he's got a read on Sam or something.
just followed it up with the lose no more money as soon as the flop comes out. It's the end of the fourth level, and we are still 8-handed. Global qualifier Matthew Franklin has now taken the lead with 480K, closely followed by Sam Trickett. Luke Schwartz and Eugene Katchalov, who are at the bottom of the table, are also at the bottom of the league. They need to ladder up to get back in contention.
Next time, Group A's third league match concludes, and for some of the players, it will be crucial to rack up as many points as they can for a chance to make it to the final table.
All I need is just some paint and then I'm favourite.
Oh dear. So sick. You're waiting for me? What have I got to do to show you I'm not waiting?
This is where I test my luck.